My name is Jason Pasatta. I'm the Development Director for Career and Tech Ed within the Ottawa area ISD, so pretty much exactly due west of you guys on the other shore. And I work on an initiative called futurePREP'd, which is really about seeing more project-based, inquiry-based, design thinking, real-life applications in our K-12 districts. So within the Ottawa area ISD, we serve depending upon how you count it up, 13 different districts, around 55,000 students, K-12. So it's a relatively large ISD, not the biggest, but it's a largish one. If you've seen my presentations before, I try to do a little bit of a different spin on it. The activity, if you have been in one of my other presentations, I've done this once before, so I apologize ahead of time if you've seen this before, but we'll try to make it, I think it's fun, so hopefully you'll get a kick out of it. But anyways, the big question that I had for today when I was thinking about talking with you was, how in the world do we ensure that our students are future ready? It's one of those things that you always hear a lot of buzz about, that 5 years from now, we're not going to know what jobs are going to exist. How do we know that the content we're teaching in science or in technology or whatever else, considering that HTML5 or whatever technology our kids are learning today, it's going to be outdated 2 years from now. They're making all these advances in medicine. We know more about the cosmos than we ever knew before. What in the world should we teach? What in the world should it look like? And there's this great quote from Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO from Amazon. And he talks about, don't necessarily look at the things that are going to change in the next 10 years. Think about the things that are always going to stay the same, the things that you're always going to need in the long term. And to kind of paint that picture for you, Amazon is really key. One thing that they know that people are always going to want is faster delivery. There's not going to be a time where you're going to want your package to get there slower. So recently, as you probably know, they started to mess around with drones and having drone delivery of packages. So hopefully in the future, in certain areas, you can get a package in like 30 minutes or less. They can just deliver it right to your doorstep, which is kind of crazy to me. I mean, think about the fact that this kind of delivery is on the horizon someday soon. So this for Amazon points to the fact that you're going to have faster delivery all the time in the future. But for me, I think it points to another thing, that the fact that we're going to have robotics and other sorts of machines in our life in an ever greater presence in the future is something that is going to be consistent from here on out. Here's a company that is on the West Coast, or on the West Coast of Michigan. In Ottawa County, it's called JR Automation, and this is their Jenga playing robot. So I'll let you see a little bit of this. So it stacks all the different blocks like this. It has a little suction thing on it. It'll go faster in a second. But it's pretty amazing how it does it. So watch, I'll just let you watch it for a second. So again, goes through all the stacking, does it pretty impeccably. And this is the great part. I love this part. So it shoots out all of the things. So it's got a little air compressor. So it does it, and it actually messes up this time. This is a really bad video of it doing it because it actually falls down in a second or two. But if it goes pretty well, if it stacks it right, it can do the whole game. And then it messes up on purpose to make it look like it's like a fallible robot. And then it sweeps it all up and does it again. But it's a pretty hilarious thing to see, this robot that can actually play the game of Jenga because it has those little optics on it and has the little air compressor, things like that. So obviously in the future, we're going to outsource all of our game playing. So forget playing against friends, you're going to play against robots. Another thing potentially that's looking on the horizon for being outsourced is, or taken over by robots, is things like servers in fast food restaurants. So I don't know if this is real. This looks like something that was from like a Pixar movie or something. This looks like it was a little made up. But supposedly in Oak Brook, where McDonald's was based, and also in the kind of the West, I think it was in San Jose, they had a couple of McDonald's where they tested out totally robotic serving, totally robotic picking up at the windows, totally robotic everything. You order everything with a touch screen. The robots made it behind the scenes, and then they delivered it to you outside. Here's the actual machinery that they use for that. So this is by Momentum Machines in California. You can see the robot essentially assembles all of the different things. And they have another machine that slices all the tomatoes, that cooks all the meat. You got to wait for my favorite part, though. It's coming up in a second. So wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. And there it is.
Oh. Wow.
So the idea behind this is the fact that it's faster, it's more sanitary, it gets the order right every time, and it's honestly, over the life of the machine, more cost effective, considering the fact that minimum wage is going up to 15 bucks an hour. This is something that fast food restaurants are looking at. So you might be asking yourself, okay, fine, whatever. So we won't be delivering things. We won't be playing Jenga anymore. We won't be making hamburgers in fast food restaurants. You know, like, what's the big deal? This is one that's coming from Europe. This is actually a robot that supposedly demonstrates that with the proper programming and things like that, robots can actually be somewhat creative. So this is a painting robot. It takes a picture of a scene or a face or something else and actually paints in this style. And you'll see in a second kind of what it looks like. And it's awfully slow, so this would take a long time for it to work. But this robot developed basically has different ways of painting, different ways it can do it. And it's actually really, really nice. Yeah. So they'll show you kind of the painting process right here. And I'll let you see the full robot in a second. So here's the robot that's actually doing the painting. And it has the palette, so it dips, it cleans off the brush, it does the nice little like technique where it like cleans it off on the edge of the thing like an actual painter does, things like that. So kind of cool or kind of freaky depending upon how you're looking at it. So I mean, it brings to mind lots and lots of questions about like, why do we paint? Why do we create things? Things like that. There's lots of kind of ethical questions behind this that you could be asking yourself. So you can be asking yourself, this really isn't creativity. This is more of a robot looking at a picture, it gets an algorithm, and then it knows how to paint it in kind of this sort of a style. Google recently did a patent for robots with personality. These are robots that, depending upon if you sign the Google release statement or whatever else when they come out with these robots, it'll scan your email, it'll scan your search history, it'll scan the videos you have uploaded. So you can say, so it can basically say, okay, it's raining where you are. It looks like the tone in your emails are, you're pretty grumpy today. So this robot's going to treat you a certain way so that you don't get frustrated or upset when the robot actually interacts with you. So Google has this patent to have robots that actually take all of this basically big data and make a personality behind it. So to me, like, given this trajectory of all these crazy things that are going to be outsourced and be available for robots to do, what in the world do kids need to learn today? If these sorts of things can be done by robots, if a robot essentially, Google's saying, you can have robots and they'll go haggle over the price of a car for you because the robot's not going to cave. You are when you go see the person. You send the robot, it's just going to essentially say like, no, I'm going to pay $10,000 and that's all I'm going to pay, and it's just going to walk out when it doesn't get $10,000. Essentially, what are you going to be left to do? Now, I would argue that skills such as this, and this is one of my favorite artists, are going to be what's critical in the future. So this is a recent exhibition from my favorite artist called Banksy. Does anyone know who Banksy is? So Banksy is a street artist, and he does these social commentary art pieces. He opened this last week, I think, in England. He had a rundown seaside like amusement park, so you can see it here. And with a couple of other artists, he did a replica of Disneyland, only he called it Dismaland or Dismaland. And you go there and all of the employees are wearing those pink vests. They all look bored. They have the sculpture of the lady being attacked by seagulls. They have the horse and carriage that kind of got pushed over, got in an accident, and the paparazzi have taken pictures of it. So it's this really weird social commentary, and it's sold out essentially the first day it opened. So you can't get tickets for the next month or two to this attraction. But it's things like this, things that you are so out of the norm, so out of left field, that are going to be the things that humans are going to need to do in the future, the things that are going to be the true innovations that robots are not going to be able to replicate, at least for a long, long, long time. If we were going to ensure that students are future ready, it's going to be these sorts of skills that we're going to need to really make sure that our kids have more than ever. The ability to be technology literate, so know how to work with those robots, how to program them, how to do software, how to do things like that. But also things like, how are we good ethical citizens? Because if we have the power to make these robots, we have the power to do all this stuff, does it mean we should? Does it mean what should we be outsourcing it for? Those questions are going to become so big in the future that if we don't start teaching them now, if we don't start having kids at least contemplate them now, we're going to be in a pretty bad spot. Let me give you a little bit of a background of where I'm coming from and how we're working on this in Ottawa County. I'll explain that that thing in front of you, that big booklet, and then you're going to do something because I feel like you've been sitting here long enough listening to me talk. So with that, I work in a program within Ottawa County called futurePREP'd. And within futurePREP'd, we really have 5 big goals or things that form our core. At our core, we want to see kids or educators. Honestly, we work more with educators, helping them realize how they can transform their practice in their classroom than students. But students are kind of a nice product of what we do. So we concentrate on the skills for success, and those are those 7 skill sets that you saw on the slide before. If you look inside of your handy-dandy notebook, but if you go in the back of it, there's a resources section. What we've done in Ottawa County is, for each of these skills, we've broken it down by grade band. So for K-5, 6, 8, and 9, 12, we've kind of identified what's the proficiency level for a 5th grader versus an 8th grader versus a 12th grader. So for educators in the classroom, they can give kids feedback on, look, you're really good at technology, but your ethical citizenship really needs to be raised, and here's how, and here's what we need to work on. Along with that, we really believe in relevance, so helping educators understand how do your standards relate to business and industry and local careers, things like that. We like to do that through project-based learning, so helping educators come up with a driving question, a need to know, and then kind of having a final product or something that demonstrates your learning. The one I'm really going to be talking to you about today is called the creative sequence. So this is kind of how our process for how do we take students from that initial problem all the way to that final solution, and how do you validate it and make sure it's okay. And then the last one, which I'll talk to you about at the end, is experience. We've really found that if as a teacher you don't have the chance to practice this and do this with real kids outside of your classroom, it's really, really tough to do on your own. Just going for that big leap in your classroom without having some kind of sure footing beforehand. Let me talk you through the creative sequence real quick, and I'm going to have you do something. So one of the things we talked about with the core is creative sequence. So how do you go from the beginning of an issue all the way to that final solution? And really, we kind of come up with 6 different steps in going through that process. So the first one is, what's the problem, issue, or opportunity? So identifying what's the big question we're going to explore. Usually that's, as a teacher, you're deciding that. You're saying, here are the standards I cover, here's our big question that we're going to have you investigate. But every once in a while, you might want to have students just investigate that on their own and say, what questions do you want to do? What questions are you interested in? From there, they investigate. So they might do interviews, they might do other kind of things that go along with this. From there, they come up with different solutions, so they incubate their solutions. And from there, they kind of go in and go narrow. So they choose a couple solutions that might work, they decide on one, and then at the very end, they validate, did that solution actually work, or do people actually buy it? Obviously, you can go back around in this a couple times. So if the solution didn't work, you might realize, oops, we have to go investigate more, or we have to go back to another solution. So you can keep kind of going around and around on this if you want. Typically, because of constraints in the classroom, it typically ends at a certain point. So you just say, like, it's done at this time. Let's go ahead and do something. So you came up with 4 things that bug you about the airline experience. So it could have been cramped legroom, it could have been the food, could have been any one of those things. What I want you to do is in your group of 3 to 4, put all of your cards face down in one pile on one person's table and shuffle them all up. Okay, once they're properly shuffled, everyone in your team pick out 1 card from the stack. Just 1 card. Okay, so now that you've shared your 3 to 4 cards depending upon your group size, what I want you to do is you are going to have 8 minutes to grab a piece of paper on the side, a set of markers, so we have select colors, your choice on which ones to use, with only, I know, yeah, and they're the Mr. Sketch markers, so please don't smell them too much, I know, yes. I know, that's a highlight. So anyway, you only using pictures, no words. I want you as a team to draw the ultimate airline. Here's what it's going to be. Oh yeah, you heard me. You are going to draw a picture of what Airloft Airlines is. It's a different kind of airline in a good way. This is going to be your drawn solution of addressing those 3 or 4 issues you have. What would your airline look like, or what would it function like? Only use a picture. You have Okay, we're at the 22-second warning mark. If you're done, we're gonna put them, let's put them right up here. Okay, so last marks, last marks. After you're done putting them up, inside your booklet, you should have some sticky dots. Take out 1 page of sticky dots. You don't need all of them, just take 1 thing. And then come on up here.
What? Sorry.
Oh, bring it on up here. Let's put it right next to one of these up here. Yeah, but come up here with it, and then grab 1 thing of sticky dots from the front of your booklet once. It doesn't matter color. Don't worry about it. That thing's not coming down. That's fine. You know what? I can use a sticky dot to look at that. It's like I planned it with this.
This is the side that I'll need to be.
Oh, duh. I'm like putting it on the side.
Sticky side over there.
I'm like, oh, there we go. Nice. All right, so come on up with your sticky dots. So in front of your booklet, you should have some dots like this. Doesn't matter color. Just grab 1 strip. All right. We're going to do a dot vote. You're going to silently look at everyone's drawings. And you get 2 votes. You get to vote for your favorite one. You can do 1 dot for 2. You can vote only 1 dot for yourself. So let's say you want to vote for yourself. You can do 1 dot for yourself, 1 dot for another one. You can do 2 dots for somebody, but it can't be your own. Deal? All right. So go ahead and vote. All right. So wow, nice. Pretty even spread. So could someone talk about why did you vote for the one that you voted for?
The antibacterial spray, whatever, is pretty funny.
That's honestly why I voted for it. A shower of bacterial spray while you're flying, just coming up on you. Like, is it mist? I hope it's mist. I hope it's antibacterial mist. Okay, do people want to briefly describe what you created, just so we have a general understanding of what you were going after? Because I don't think you get the full picture of everything just from the drawing. Yes, yes. So who wants to start off? Let's start off with the personal bubble / shower of antibacterial spray.
So we created a personal bubble because our 3 things were space, smell, and germs. And so our own personal bubble, it's very spacious. There's a nice recliner. That's not hair on the recliner, it's coils.
Oh.
So it's like, you know, if there's turbulence, it'll go with you. And it's very comfortable. The spray, actually, it's supposed to be like a door into your own personal bubble, but it turned out to be like the antibacterial spray. But we wanted it to be germ-free, so again, that's nice in the air. Personal TV, a fan, to go around to circulate that air. And then behind, you'll notice there's different scents that you can choose from.
Ooh.
So one of the smells, you know, we don't like the weird smells, like if someone wears too much cologne next to you, that's gross. So you can pick your own smell, and it'll spray out.
Well, our challenges were the smell of soiled diapers, as well as feeling, as well as the experience being nauseating and very scary, frightening takeoffs and landings. So we tried to create an airplane that would go straight up and straight down, as well as have an air recycling system, so that takeoff and landing would be a much quicker, smoother process, as well as not such a grade and make you feel so sick.
We had cost of tickets, so at the Airbnb, the calendar on the right, we all took our spaces on our calendar, then we saved the space for our friends, so that's how we're sharing the price. And then, what were our other ones?
That one.
Air pressure, so that it has a fancy little ear muff, so the passenger feels comfortable. Dirty floors on the jet, we drew jet mop. A mop, so you can clean your floors on your jet, and then your luggage above.
So we had, one of the complaints was that your luggage is coming later, it's delayed. So this way it's never away from you. Just put it in your attic. You put it in your attic.
So this is one of my favorite protocols to use with adult students. It's called 3-12-3. I probably want to let it go a little longer than I probably might have usually, just because people are having a good time and it seemed like you were okay with it. But essentially it's 3 minutes for brainstorming, doing the cards, coming up with all the things that you want to brainstorm, picking it out, 12 minutes to sketch, and then 3 minutes. Typically in the classroom you do 3 minutes for every group to pitch out their ideas. But I feel like that gets a little long and laborious, especially if you have 30 kids and then you have groups of 3 or 4, and then it's like 6 to 10 groups that you have to listen to 3-minute pitches. It just gets really tedious. So I like to cap it off with just some voting and just some brief description just to kind of get it out there. But what was the process like for you? Talk to me about it. What happened in your group? What happened when you did the sketches?
I didn't want to draw.
Why not?
Because I'm not good at it. Just kind of inhibited by it.
Do you find that with your students too? Are your students inhibited to draw? Some, yeah. Okay. What else struck you about the process?
We wanted to ask permission. You know, can we do this? Can we do that? At least I felt that way. Is this in the parameters of the question? And as a team, we worked out that, hey, we can. This is our thing. We can do that, and we did it.
Yeah.
It takes power in numbers. Like if you're all going to be wrong, that's okay. If like one team wrong is bad.
Yeah.
Well, it took us a while to get over the fact that, like, because we first talked about the shape of it, and we were like, well, it doesn't have to look like an airplane, and like, so we had to have that discussion and like get over like our initial thoughts of what is expected.
Let's move on. Yeah. How would it have been different if I said, okay, you have an hour to sketch your idea, and then tomorrow we're going to come back, and then I'll give you a little bit of revision time, get it all set, and then we're going to discuss at the end of the period, at the end of tomorrow's period.
No, this allowed us to have a lot of fun with it and really be creative. And I think for all of us, none of us wanted to draw, so just, you know, I just started with the house, and then everybody had to pick up the next thing. We shared the drawing, which was awkward, but then it was fun because then it felt like we all did it together.
Well, you didn't have a dominant personality because you only had limited time, so everybody had to jump in and take a part of the project.
Yeah.
So we even draw at the same time.
Yeah. The nice thing I like, so picking off the dominant thing, the nice thing I like about the cards is the fact that so sometimes I had you do 4. Sometimes you might say, for 2 minutes, I'm going to have you brainstorm everything you can about this topic. So just get everything out of the way, and you use as many cards as you want. Then you shuffle them all up, and then you've got a stack like this tall, and then everyone picks one out. The nice thing about the picking then is everyone got their ideas out there, so no one feels like, I've got my great idea that I want to share with everyone, and you might pick someone else's that you have to share with everyone. So you're not necessarily defending your own, you're defending someone else's idea. So it allows people to kind of be part of the conversation without that one person who has the idea that they just have to have in that group, because there's always that one kid. Going back to this idea of the creative sequence, so we essentially, I gave you a question or issue or opportunity. You didn't really investigate. You kind of did your own prior knowledge, investigated. But you came up with ideas. You made Jenga fall down. You essentially came up with some solutions, made a decision, and then you essentially validated whether it worked up here with the dot voting. In pretty much less than a half hour, we were able to go through the whole process. The nice thing about this is the fact that you've essentially, you can imagine this with your curriculum, with whatever topics you're teaching. This is one way to get everything out there and to think about beginning the process and then going back through it. What typically happens in our classrooms, though, when we have like a creative assignment, like imagine, I don't know what part of the curriculum this ever would be where you're teaching about airlines. We're just going to say that this is a content standard somewhere, whatever. And part of this, you're going to have this project about, we're going to design an airline today. How would that process typically go in a typical classroom? Not saying you do this, but in a typical classroom, how would this go? What would happen? You'd say the question, here's our question, class, you're going to create your own airline, and let's say it's the exact same thing. You're going to create Airloft, and I want you to get super creative with it, and it's going to be, well, I'll let you fill in the blanks after that. What would typically happen in this project?
Disagreements.
So disagreements, why would disagreements happen in this project? Okay, so let's say the project was, I'm going to group you into groups of 4, and you're going to have a week to get this done. What would happen between probably that first day and the week later?
Procrastination.
Yeah, not a lot.
Nothing until the last day.
Yeah.
Or somebody do it all by themselves, so
Yeah.
they're tired of waiting
Yeah.
on other people.
Right.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times we give projects to kids, but we don't define how in the world are you going to tackle the project. We just say like, well, go research it. You've got books, you've got the internet, you've got friends, you can contact people, and we give lots of ideas, but leave it really, really, really open. So kids kind of flounder, they don't know what to do, and then like you said, the very last day they realize, oh my gosh, it's due tomorrow. Well, we've got to really hustle all of a sudden, so now let's get some stuff done. I would argue that as opposed to being less structured, having more constraints on kids, and having more structure along the way actually helps kids be more creative than less creative. Because if you don't have to think about who is the dominant person in the group, where are ideas coming from, how in the world are we going to brainstorm this, if you kind of take care of all of those things for the students, then it frees them up to actually do all of the creative work and all the things that you want to get out of them along the way, if that makes sense. That's why I feel like this is so powerful in terms of a process. Having students understand that, okay, we're going to spend 1 week on a project, but for 2 days we're going to investigate, and then here are going to be the 3 protocols we're going to use in the next 2 days to help investigate that. Then after that, then we're going to come up with ideas. It helps kids categorize in their mind, here's the process we're going through along the way. Because another thing I like to do, and this is actually in your book, I'll show it to you real quick. In the front, the way I like to categorize the observation stage is you're setting up the question at the beginning, you're kind of determining what the kids are going to investigate, but it's also the students getting to know each other, what they're good at, what their strengths are, who they're going to be in the group, things like that. And one of my favorite things to do is, let me see if I can find it real quick. This one. Strategy number 4, the creative DNA. So what you do is, for each one of these stages of the creative sequence, you have sticky notes in each one of those colors. And you tell kids, you have 6 sticky notes, and I want you to represent what your creative DNA is, or what you like to do best in the creative sequence. So, for example, if you really like to investigate stuff, you might have 3 green sticky notes. If you like to come up with lots of solutions, you might have 1 purple sticky note. If you hate deciding on something, you might have no red. And then you might have just 1 yellow because you love to debate things and say that you're right and stuff like that. Having kids make that visual representation of where they like to exist on this is really good for a group, because once they start working in a group, then you can say like, well, we know Johnny, who loves to just investigate and research and come up with ideas all day. Once we get here, we're going to really have to drag him along, because he's going to be way stuck back here all the time. It's really fascinating. Even if you think about yourself, you probably have some preferences about what you like to do in this. Because for me, for example, I love this and this. But once I get here, I'm like kind of through with it. I just want to go back here and start coming up with different ideas and different solutions and stuff like that. Because, you know, validating and deciding on it, like whatever. I know other people, though, that the second they get the problem, they're already over here like, well, I know what the solution is. This is what it is. And they just jump all the way to here. So knowing that ahead of time kind of helps clear some of that initial confusion and things within the group. So within the Ottawa Area ISD, the way that we work with educators around this is we kind of go through 4 different steps. The first one is we have kind of 6 days of training, so 6 intensive days of training where they learn the basics about PBL, the creative sequence. From there, we actually have them, it sounds kind of mean, but we actually have them experience the process as a student. We actually have them work with a local organization or business to solve a real-life driving question or issue. So this past year, we had them, what was the issue we gave them? I'm kind of blanking on one. Oh, we had them work with a local organization to redevelop their kid programming for their organization. So it was a group of educators. They had to research it. They had to do all those different steps in the creative sequence. And then at the end, they actually pitch their solutions to the real-life organization or business. It's pretty funny to see, funny or mean, to see educators actually get nervous or stressed out about presenting to an organization when they're professionals and adults as well. But it's really funny because they gain so much empathy for what students go through when they actually have to present to real people. From there, we actually have educators, each of our educators go through a program in the summer where they're placed with a small group of students and a partner teacher at a local business, where in the high school program for 2 weeks, they solve a real-life issue at the business, with the business. For middle school, it's 1 week. So you have a partner teacher, and for 1 week, you solve a real-life issue. And then for elementary, it's 2 teachers, but then as opposed to a local business, well, it's a business, but we put them in an ice cream shop. And then for 3 afternoons, they develop a new sundae for that ice cream shop that they then put on the menu and sell that summer. This year, when we first started the program, we actually didn't have the creative sequencer that much mapped out. And it went well. It was a good program. But what the kids came up with was so outlandish and kind of just so like in left field that we were impressed. We loved it, but it just didn't really stick. This past year, so this is the 4th year we've done the high school program, 10 out of the 12 solutions the kids came up with, the business is actually going to use. So we have kids, I think this is a real testament to it. Half of the teams are still working on their solutions in the business, and the program ended 2 months ago. So, I mean, it's really, really cool and really, really fun to see that much excitement, investment, and creativity coming out of these kids. So it's been really, really fun. And then the last thing we do is, after all this is done, we work with our educators to develop, okay, now that you've experienced all this, what does this look like in your own classroom? What does this look like in your own context? Yeah?
So that's a summer program they do, right? Is that what you're saying?
They do. So they start the training probably in February. That continues. They do the experience as a student kind of in early summer. And then once summer hits, then they do that summer program. And then after that, they develop for their own classrooms.
So that's stage 3, the practice with the
Yes.
local is during the summer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's the only time we can really get kids and teachers to be kind of concentrated. So where we're currently at is we do about 130 teachers a year. And if you do the multiplication of how many kids that is, we're reaching about 10,000 kids a year. Because, if you think about our middle school, high school teachers, they have about 100 kids each that they're working with. So we're really happy with where it's going. It's pretty exciting. But it's That's all to say that I think at the end of the day, the future of education is not going to be so much in content and things like that. It's going to be about the facilitation of learning and how do you collaborate and things like that and doing protocols like you did today. So thank you. If you need anything else, let me know, but it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you.